debate, we're going to ask you to stand to indicate whether you are for the person who is affirmative, defending the topic, or the person who is negative in opposition to the topic. So they're not trying to convince each other, they're trying to convince you. So I ask you to listen to the arguments, and at the end we will ask you to vote. So at this point, let me introduce you to the two debaters. First, in speaking in favor of the proposition, which is that the British government-managed healthcare system is preferable to the American non-profit, for-profit system. Speaking in favor of that is Andrew Tuffin. There's Andrew. Andrew's an active debater on the European University's debating circuit. He's received a Master of Arts and MA in philosophy from King's College London, and also read history as an undergraduate at the University of Manchester. He took up debating 2 years ago because a broken foot made him pretty ineffective as a member of the university hockey team. Since then, he's won intervarsity tournaments, he's picked up Individual Speakers Award, and he's acted as the chief adjudicator at competitions on the British university circuit. He's also involved in the English Speaking Union's high school debate program, which endeavors to broaden students' horizons, build their confidence, and teach them how to talk back to their teachers without getting into too much trouble. A keen traveler, Andrew has particularly fond memories from spending a year in India and Nepal as a teacher, and he's now looking forward to the experiences ahead of him here in the States. Speaking against the proposition, in other words, speaking to the position that the American system is preferable to the government-managed British system, is Dan Bradley. Hi, Dan. Dan is the former president of the Manchester Debating Union. Oh, and Dan is from Manchester, by the way, and the Northern and Midlands Debating Alliance. Dan is actually going back when he finishes this tour to defend his thesis for his PhD in chemistry. Wow. From the University of Manchester. He interrupted his degree to complete an internship on climate change study for the Houses of Parliament. We know we need that. Dan took up university debating after he became fed up losing arguments in pubs to a friend who was a convener of debates at Glasgow University. Over the course of his PhD studies, he's competed in 75 debate competitions, reaching the semifinals of the World University Debate Championships, and he was one of the top 10 speakers at the European Championships. His current plans rely on telling good stories about debate tours in order to get his way through his thesis defense. All right, so we will begin the debate with Andrew, who will speak in favor of the proposition that the British government-managed system of healthcare is preferable to the American for-profit, non-profit system.
Just so we're all clear, what I'll spend the first part doing is explaining what the differences are between the British system and the American system. Because as much as Fox News would like to tell you that Barack Obama is a communist like Hitler was, which I think the communists would be surprised by to find out, this debate is more than just about funding healthcare. It's about how you ration it, because rationing is what we do back home. Sarah Palin was right to say we have death squads. And then I'll go on to explain why I think the British system is fairer and why I love death squads and you should too. And that will look at not only why I think it's more moral, but more practical in the British system. But this is not the public option. The public option is very much staying within the ideology of the status quo you have here, the method of status quo which involves insurance systems, and that's not what we have. What do we have? Well, let's look at funding first. Britain is free at the point of access, which means if you're like Dan, an irresponsible fool who got a spike put through his leg while at a music concert, you turn up to an emergency room and they ask you a series of questions. What's your name? Are you allergic to any known medication? Are you on any medication? What's your blood type? That's it. Anything that's not entirely relevant to the medical situation at hand, they don't care about. They patch him up, they ask him staples or stitches, Mr. Bradley, and then he hobbles off back to his life, and no one's asked him for any money, no one's asked him for anything other than making sure he's cared for. But it is funded. It's funded by the taxpayer. He is spending hard-working individuals' money while he is at university having a ball. What do you do in the US? In the US, you've got the private insurance scheme. So you go to an insurance company before you're ill at all, and you pay over your $100 a month, $300 a month, whatever the Cadillac Rolls-Royce system costs, probably, I don't know, like $1,000, $10,000 a month. You have different abilities to pay, different types of insurance depending on your ability to pay. You also have things like Medicare and Medicaid that try and pick up the slack for those that can't afford it. But the key is they are still built within that system where they are paying the receipts of private medical care. This is where rationing becomes important, because this might surprise some Americans, but every healthcare system in the world allocates their medical resources. Why is this? That's because there is a finite supply of medical resources. There are only a certain amount of doctors, there are only a certain amount of hospitals, there are only a certain amount of drugs, and everyone can't have access to them because demand for healthcare is infinite. People get old, people get ill, and they do it rather a lot and rather frequently. And this means you always have more demand than you could possibly meet. Now, in the US, what you choose to do is what you would do for any normal service. Like, if you've got iPods or Apples, obviously not everyone can have them. So what you do is you charge a certain amount, and those that can't afford it think, well, I don't want an iPod that much, I'm not going to buy it. And those that, can afford it or really want one will go out and buy one. In Britain, that's not what we do. It's not based on your ability to pay. It's based on how much you need it. We have a group called the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, or NICE, as the acronym would call them. And what they do is they decide what kind of people should have access to healthcare. And what they do is they base it on a thing called QALYs, which is quality adjusted life years. So it takes into account two things: how many more years of life this treatment would give you, and what the quality of those would be. So two examples would be, if you have, say, some kind of life-saving treatment for, heart transplant or something like that, and you have two people, you have a 90-year-old and a 20-year-old, and you can give, because it's, $2 million, this operation, you can only afford to give that operation to one of them. NICE would choose the 20-year-old, because the 90-year-old's going to die soon anyway. It'd be nice for them, they'd maybe get 5 extra years to take pictures of the grandkids, but you've only given them 5 years for your $1 million of tax money, whereas the 20-year-old has got a life ahead of them, and this bureaucrat decides that they are more needy. The other thing they do is take into the quality of those lives. So if you've got two people and both of them have their left eyesight is deteriorating because they have some kind of eye disease, but one of them is already blind in the right eye, but the other one has a fully working right eye, some bureaucrat says, save the person who's already blind in their right eye, because if they lose their left eyesight, they're totally blind, whereas if we let the other person go blind in the left eye, at least they can still see a bit. They'll be no good at catching baseballs because they've got no depth perception, but at least they can still watch the telly. That'll be fine. But the important thing is a bureaucrat decides who is more needy and who is most worthy of spending this tax money on. Right. Why I think this system is awesome. Because some things are too important to let people go without, or at least to allow a free market and money to decide who gets those systems. Why is that true? iPods and fruit. In a free market, I'm sure Republicans might say, these are incentives to work hard. If you want an iPod, go out, educate yourself, get a job, and you can get it too. That's not how heart transplants work. People tend not to get them because they find it amusing or entertaining, because they vitally need them. And also, it's not terrible to go without an iPod. You can get by. You can't get by without a kidney. You can't really get by with broken legs. These are the kind of things that everyone needs and requires. We have an example. Imagine a situation where someone's broken into your house, they've shot the dog, and they're heading upstairs, they've already got your telly under one arm, and they're heading for your loved one's bedroom. You call the police.